Now, you guys know that I ain't the kind of guy who's going to learn a classic Vito Bratta guitar solo and not share how to play it with you guys. So on today's lesson, we're going to take a deep dive into Vito's sickly sweet solo from When the Children Cry by White Lion. I'm going to give you guys a note-by-note breakdown on how to play this one, then we're going to go into the theory behind what makes it tick. Well, hey there kids, it's your good buddy, Uncle Ben. Last week my buddy Mike from the channel The Art of Guitar hit me up saying that he was planning on doing a series of videos breaking down the 50 most iconic hair metal solos. He asked if I wanted to contribute a couple covers to that thing, and of course I happily obliged. And one of the ones that he handed me was When the Children Cry by White Lion. You guys know, of course, that I'm a huge fan of Vito's playing. Here on my channel we've done full breakdowns of the solos from Wait, Little Fighter, and Tell Me. So I was excited to learn this one and then share with you guys exactly how to play it. Unlike Vito's other solos, this one is not impossible to play. So even if you're just a young shred-eye knight on your way, you'll be able to master this solo and work on your bending control, your tapping, all kinds of good stuff. As always, this video is brought to you guys by everybody who supports my channel on my Patreon page at patreon.com/Ben Eller Guitars. Sign up today. Even for just $1 a month, you get access to all kinds of good stuff like bonus lessons, downloadable tabs, backing tracks, and so much more. This week, everybody who supports my channel, even for just $1 a month, also gets access to a special video to go along with this one, giving you guys kind of a fly-on-the-wall approach to how I transcribe solos and learn them quickly. I just kind of set up my phone as I was transcribing this thing, and I'm going to show you guys some of my secrets for learning and internalizing a solo super fast. So don't delay. Sign up today. Gear-wise for today's video, I'm playing my lovely Ernie Ball Music Man Luke 3 here that I got from the fine folks at Sweetwater, and I've got that running through the Axe FX 3 for the tones. Before we start digging into it, let's hear that solo again at stepdad speed. To get the most out of learning this solo, be sure to learn the chord progression that's going on behind it. So we're going to be talking about that here soon too, and talking about how all these notes he plays interact with those chords so perfectly. Okay, so the solo starts off with this little rake into this D note bend on the B string. Now I noticed live he kind of does that like what I just did, muting the strings and kind of raking through them like that before you hit the bend. But on the album, it kind of sounds like he was doing the muting for the rake at the 12th fret, and he kind of snags the D and G harmonics a little bit before he does the bend, kind of like this. Just barely there. So if you want to nail it, try to get the muting down there at the 12th fret on the G and D strings. Okay, so you got that bend. Then what we're going to do is do a little pull off here from your E note to your C note on the B string. Same idea, but using D and B. Then we're going to play this phrase on the G string. So you'll notice that was an A note, a G note, and then sliding down to an F sharp, okay? End on the D, before we return again to that 15th fret here on the B string with the whole step bend. Now at this point, while you're holding the bend up, using one of the free fingers here on your picking hand, you're going to tap the 17 and hold it down like this. So you're going to do the bend, tap the 17, okay? Now after you tap that note, what you're going to do is while you're still holding it down, let the bend back down and then pull back off to the 15. So it's kind of like you bend the 15, tap the 17, let them both down, pull back off to 15. I'll do that a few more times here because it's probably the most confusing lick in the solo, honestly. After this, you're going to tap the 17 again, pull back off to the 13, the C note, and then pull that off to the B note. And then to cap that off here, we're going to grab the A note on the high E string and give it a whole step bend, let it down, pull it off to G, and then go back to A. Again, a little rake into that for added sexy points. At this point, we're going to jump up here to the B note on the high E string and just give it a sweet little half step bend. Take it up a fret to C and give it a whole step bend, just like that. Then you're going to play this phrase. So that's B, C, B, G. So I'm going to the B string at this point. So after you play that G note, you're going to give that another smooth whole step bend up and down. Take it down to the F sharp, the E, and then down to the D note. It's like a very Slash sounding phrase to me. It kind of reminds me of his like Knocking on Heaven's Door solo. And then we're going to end the solo here back in the 12th position. Now you're going to play that 15 on the B again with a whole step bend. Then you have this little phrase. So you can see I took the bend up, let it down, picked it again, pulled off to C, slid down to B, then I got a hammer-on pull off here from C to B again. At this point, you're going to grab the A note on the G string. Now the timing here is kind of groovy. So you got that little kind of, triplet-y feel there at the end. And then taking the D note up, whole step, picking it, letting it down, and then just gradually depress that bar and fade away. So from the top, we start off with our rake, pull-offs, sliding down the G, our bend, tap, another tap, then we get to the Slash sounding phrases, and then our ending. So now let's talk about some of the theory and harmony Vito was using whenever he put this solo together. Vito is such a super melodic player. He's always paying really close attention to the chord changes he's playing against and thinking about those, not just what key he's in. The biggest mistake I could make is just to tell you guys, these are licks in the key of G. Go have fun with them. Because then you might try to use those in your solo and be perplexed as to why it doesn't sound as melodic as when Vito does it. Vito is targeting specific notes in all of these chords as they're going by. Like I said earlier in the video, if you really want to learn what makes a solo tick, don't just learn the solo. Learn the rhythm guitar part 2. That way you can learn what the chord progression is and then start thinking about, man, why do these notes he's choosing work so well against them? Here's the real key, guys, whenever you're writing melodic solos. Every chord you're playing against is made up of a very specific set of notes. So for example, your G chord is made up of the notes G, B, and D, just repeating over and over. G, B, D, G, D, G. Your B minor chord is B, D, F sharp, so on and so on. Every chord is like a specific set of notes. And whenever you're soloing, if you hit one of those specific notes that's in a chord, it's going to sound super melodic right away and not just sound like you're playing random notes that are in key but not necessarily in chord, okay? That's the key phrase I want you guys to take from this. Think in chord first. Think in key second. Always be thinking about what chord you're playing against, okay? Okay, so like for example, the rhythm guitar part here starts off on our finger-picked little G thing right here. Goes to a D, an E minor, B minor, C, G, E minor, and D. Those are all chords in the key of G, okay? So whenever Vito is soloing against this, he's choosing notes from the G scale. Nothing in this solo is outside of that scale, but he's choosing which notes are in that scale that work against every chord individually as they go by. Here's what I mean. So it starts off on the G chord, right? So when he plays this, he's landing on a D note from the G scale. That's a note that is in this chord. You can even see it under your third finger right there. Now whenever it goes to that second phrase, that's when the chord is on the D, but he plays a C note. That's kind of weird, considering that a D chord is only the notes D, F sharp, and A. None of those are a C note. Why did he play that C note and why did it work, right? Well, whenever you have a D chord and you have a C note being played on top of it, the net effect is that it's kind of doing some what we call implying harmony. It's implying harmony. That this isn't just a D chord, that it's a D chord plus a C note, which we hear as a D7. The D chord's funkier cousin, you know? So he's actually adding in a little tension there and implying some harmony. That's really cool. And it also walks him down very nicely for that B note. That B note pops up right as the E minor chord appears, which features our B note in there. So again, we're starting off on G, playing its fifth, the D note. The D chord comes up, we play its flat 7, the C note, to make it sound like a D7. That's a cool choice. Then we land on that B note right as E minor arrives. Now that phrase walks down, and right when he lands on this F sharp note, and then this D note that comes after it, again, these are not randomly chosen. Those are two notes that are inside of the B minor chord. F sharp, D, boom, right there. That's why it sounds so melodic when he lands on those two notes. Now the cool tapping lick comes up right here, right? Now, whenever he does that, he's taking this D note and bending it up to an E. He does that exactly as the C chord arrives on the scene, which features an E note in it. Again, Vito really knows those triads, triads being the recipes for the chords he's playing against. He knows those really well and is always choosing the right note to play against the right chord. Again, it is not random. These are all chosen notes that belong to the chords as well as the scale that's kind of the umbrella over all of them. So anyway, so when the C chord shows up, he's got that bend, hitting that E, lets it down against the D note again, right as the G chord shows up. And then after that, again, we're going to this B note here, right as E minor shows up. And then this guy, he lands right on that A note, right as our D chord arrives. There's your A note inside of a D chord. Note targeting, note targeting, note targeting, all over the place. This continues in the next section here. That's being played over a G chord, giving us that nice melodic third. There's another use right there of him playing the C note against the D chord to give us that D7 kind of tense sound. That's pretty cool. Now that lick, B and G, that lands right as E minor shows up. B, G, they're right there in the chord. Lands on F sharp, right as B minor shows up. There's your F sharp note. Walks it down to D. There's a D note in that too. And then for the closing licks right there, whenever he plays this, that's kind of like the move that we did earlier against the C chord. He's playing this E note, playing the B note here against the G. There's a B note in it. And then for the last section, he's taking us up to the note B, which is part of our E minor chord. G right there, also part of the E minor chord. And then lastly, to end on that D, he's of course just landing right there on the root, D. So all over the place here, there's all these great melodic choices being made. And I find especially when you're playing against simple chords, like how this is just, very plain Jane major and minor chords, it becomes even more important to speak directly to those chords and play the notes that matter to them, especially right when that chord shows up. Like with all the parts in this, as soon as that new chord arrives, Vito's on top of it playing a relevant note to it, a chord tone. That's what I call a tonal handshake. Whenever a new chord shows up, you should introduce yourself to it and tell it something that's relevant to it. It's like making conversation at a party or something, you know? Introduce yourself to it, say something that you know is going to be in its interest, and then the conversation can kind of go wherever from there. Soloing is no different. Whenever a chord shows up, say something relevant to it. You can wander around the scale and play some other stuff after that, as long as you've established that firm tonal handshake. That's what always comes first, and that is what Vito is a doggone master of. So there you go, guys, a total breakdown of one of the most legendary solos from the power ballad era. I love digging into Vito's stuff. Let me know in the comments section what you guys would like to see next. We've already done some of the heavy hitters like Wait and Little Fighter. I'd love to get into the one from Hungry. I've had a couple people ask for Radar Love. That'd be really cool one to do too. But let me know what your favorite Vito solo is in the comments, and we'll get to that next time. Also, be sure to check out the Art of Guitar's 50 Greatest Hair Metal Solos video. It's actually going to be, I think, a 2 or 3 part series. And it's looking like I'm going to be in at least the second part, maybe the third part too. I don't know. You'll just have to keep an eye on his channel and check it out to find out. In the first part of the video, I also did the solo to Sister Christian by Night Ranger. Really melodic, awesome solo by the amazing Brad Gillis. So I've still got that one on my mind too, so let me know in the comments if you guys want a full lesson on that one as well. Thanks for liking this video and subscribing to my channel. Be sure to ring the bell for notifications every time I upload a new slice of fried gold. Get yourself some Shred Till You're Undead merchandise by clicking the Threadless link down there in the video description. And also be sure to start supporting that Patreon page and reaping the benefits in the form of a community of awesome people like yourself, backing tracks, bonus lessons, downloadable tabs, and so much more. All available to you for just $1 a month. Click down there, sign up today. Thanks, you guys. Less clicking, more picking, and more note targeting.